The smell of roasted chicken and jollof rice filled the air, mingling with the faint scent of lemon polish on the dining table. It should have been a warm, comforting evening, a family dinner meant to bring us together. But the tension was already simmering beneath the surface like a pot about to boil over. I sat at the far end of the table, my hands resting on my lap as I watched my parents laugh with my younger brother, Tund. The glow in their eyes as they looked at him was something I hadn't seen directed my way in years. Tund, with his perfectly pressed shirt and confident smile, was the golden child, the university graduate with a stable job and a fiancé they adored. Me? I was the disappointment. Temi, pass the plantains, my mother, Mrs. Adeni, said without glancing at me. Her tone was clipped, almost dismissive, like I was a stranger instead of her eldest daughter. I passed the plate silently, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. So, Tund, my father, Mr. Adeni, said, beaming with pride, how's work at the bank? Have they mentioned the promotion yet? Tund grinned. Actually, yes. My manager said I'm in line for a supervisor role soon. It's not official yet, but things are looking good. Ah. That's my boy, my father laughed, clapping him on the back. I knew it. You've always been so hardworking, so focused. Unlike some people. His eyes flicked toward me. The unspoken words hung heavy in the air. I bit my tongue. Tonight was supposed to be about keeping the peace, about pretending that I didn't notice how my parents favored my brother. But my mother wasn't one for subtlety. You know, she began, setting down her fork, I was talking to Auntie Grace earlier today. Her daughter, Neka, just opened her second boutique. She's doing so well for herself. People are proud of her. Imagine, at her age, she's already making a name in the community. Her gaze shifted to me, sharp and disapproving. But Temi, look at you. 27, no stable job, no husband, still living under our roof. Sometimes, I wonder where I went wrong with you. The word struck like a slap. My fork trembled in my hand. Mom, I started softly, but she cut me off. No, don't mom me. I'm tired of making excuses for you. Do you know how embarrassing it is when people ask what my firstborn is doing? And I have nothing to say? You've always been so irresponsible. A failure. The last word echoed in my mind. Failure. Tund cleared his throat awkwardly, glancing between us. Mom, maybe let's not. No, Tund, she snapped, she needs to hear this. Maybe it will finally wake her up. My father remained silent, though his stern expression said everything. I stared down at my plate, my vision blurring. They didn't know. They had no idea what I'd been doing for the past 2 years, the sacrifices I'd made to keep this very family afloat. I had never said a word because I didn't need their praise, I just wanted to help. But tonight, as my mother called me a failure in front of everyone, something inside me cracked. It hadn't always been this way. Growing up, I was the star of the family. Straight A's in school, captain of the debate team, the child everyone thought would make it big. My parents boasted about me to anyone who would listen. But life has a way of humbling you. After university, I struggled to find a job. I bounced between temporary positions, assistant teacher, data entry clerk, shop attendant. Nothing stuck. Meanwhile, Tund sailed smoothly through life, always landing on his feet. When the pandemic hit, my father's small electronics business crumbled. The bills piled up. I watched my proud, hard-working father sink into depression as creditors called day and night. My mother cried quietly in her room, thinking no one could hear. One evening, I overheard them talking in hushed voices. They'll take the house, my mother whispered, her voice trembling. Where will we go? Where will the children go? We'll figure something out, my father replied, though even he sounded unsure. I remember lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding. I couldn't let them lose everything. So, I made a decision. I took a job at a local call center. It wasn't glamorous, long hours, rude customers, barely any breaks, but it paid. I didn't tell my family at first. The work was exhausting, and I often came home late, pretending I'd been at a friend's house or running errands. The first month, I used my entire salary to pay one of the overdue bills. The relief on my father's face when he saw the debt cleared was worth every aching muscle, every insult I endured at work. But one payment wasn't enough. The house was deep in arrears. So, I worked extra shifts. I started freelancing online in the evenings, writing articles for foreign clients. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Every time a payment was due, I quietly slipped the money into my father's account. When he asked where it came from, I told him it was from a government relief program. He never questioned it. Months turned into years. Slowly, the threats from the bank stopped. The house was safe again. In total, I paid $61,000 over 2 years. $61,000. And through it all, my parents never knew. Back at the dinner table, my mother's words still stung like acid. Honestly, Temi, she continued, shaking her head, sometimes I wonder if you enjoy watching us suffer. We've worked so hard to provide for you, and this is how you repay us? Sitting around, doing nothing with your life? My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to tell her everything. But I stayed silent, gripping the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. Tan tried to speak up again. Mom, maybe Temi's going through something. We don't really know what she's dealing with. Stop defending her, she snapped. She's old enough to take responsibility for herself. Look at you, Tund. You've made us proud. You're everything we hoped for in a child. Why can't she be more like you? That was it. The final straw. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the tiled floor. Everyone froze. Enough, I said, my voice shaking but firm. My mother blinked, startled. Excuse me? Enough, I repeated, louder this time. You sit here and call me a failure, but you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've done for this family. Her lips tightened. Oh, please. Don't start with excuses. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, slamming it on the table. Inside were bank statements, receipts, and copies of payment confirmations. What is this? My father asked, frowning as he opened the folder. That, I said, my voice breaking, is proof of every single payment I've made over the past 2 years to save this house. $61,000. That's how much I've spent while you sat here thinking I was doing nothing. The room fell silent. My mother's eyes widened as she flipped through the documents, her hands trembling. This can't be real. Where would you even get that kind of money? I laughed bitterly. From working day and night while you looked down on me. Call center shifts, freelance jobs, anything I could find. I barely slept. I sacrificed everything to make sure we didn't end up on the streets. My father's face went pale. Temi, you paid all this? Yes, I said, tears streaming down my cheeks. And I never said a word because I didn't want you to feel ashamed. I wanted to help quietly, to give you peace of mind. But tonight, after everything I've done, you sit here and call me a failure. My mother's mouth opened and closed like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Tun stared at me, stunned. Temi. I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't about me, I whispered. It was about family. About love. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. My mother finally spoke, her voice barely audible. I didn't know. Temi, But I held up a hand. Save it, Mom. I don't need apologies. I just need you to understand that success isn't always about titles or wealth or status. Sometimes it's about sacrifice, the kind no one sees. The words hung in the air like smoke as my family sat frozen, grappling with the truth. And for the first time in years, I felt truly seen. The air in the dining room was thick with tension, the kind that makes your chest feel tight and your breath shallow. My revelation had landed like a bomb, leaving everyone stunned and silent. My father's trembling hands held the papers as though they might disappear if he blinked too hard. My mother stared at me, her face pale, her lips slightly parted but unable to form words. It was Tand who broke the silence. "Temi," he said softly, his voice filled with disbelief. "Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell us you were struggling like this?" I swallowed hard, my throat aching from the tears I was holding back. "Because I knew if I told you, you would have tried to stop me. You would have said it was too much for me to handle, or that it wasn't my responsibility. But it was my responsibility. This is our home. I couldn't just watch it slip away." My mother finally found her voice, though it came out as a whisper. I called you a failure. I told you that you've done nothing with your life." Her eyes brimmed with tears as she looked down at her trembling hands. "Temi, I'm so ashamed of myself." Her words hit me, but I didn't rush to comfort her. Too many years of hurt had built a wall around my heart. "You should be," I said quietly but firmly. "For years, you've measured my worth by society's standards, titles, money, marriage. You never once asked me how I was doing or what I was going through. You just assumed I wasn't good enough." My father cleared his throat, his voice hoarse. "Temi, your mother and we didn't mean to hurt you. We were under so much pressure ourselves, we didn't see what was right in front of us." "That's the problem," I said, meeting his eyes. "You didn't see me." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's shoulders began to shake as quiet sobs escaped her. Tand reached over to comfort her, rubbing her back gently. After a long pause, my father finally spoke again, his voice trembling. "Temi, thank you. You've done something none of us could have done. You saved this family. You saved this home. I will never be able to repay you." I shook my head. I didn't do it for repayment. I did it because I couldn't bear to see us lose everything. But now I need to take care of myself. I've been drowning silently while trying to keep everyone else afloat. My mother looked up, her tear-streaked face filled with regret. "Please, Temi, don't shut us out. I know I've been harsh, but I want to make things right. Tell me how to fix this." I hesitated. A part of me wanted to forgive her instantly, to let the pain go. It doesn't happen in a single moment. It takes time. "You can start by respecting me," I said softly. "By seeing me not as a disappointment, but as someone who's trying her best, even if it doesn't look the way you expected." Tand reached across the table and held my hand. "I see you, Temi. I always have. I just wish I'd spoken up sooner." I gave him a small, grateful smile. As the night wore on, we sat in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. My mother's earlier words still echoed in my mind, but now they were overshadowed by something stronger, the truth I had finally spoken aloud. For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. The days that followed were strangely quiet. The house, once filled with constant chatter and laughter, now felt like a fragile glass ornament, beautiful, but one wrong move could shatter it completely. My mother tiptoed around me, her usual sharp tongue replaced by hesitant kindness. She'd leave little things by my door, a plate of food, fresh laundry, or a small note that simply said, "Thank you." It was her way of apologizing, though the words themselves hadn't been spoken yet. One evening, a few days after the dinner, my father knocked on my bedroom door. "Temi," he said softly. "Can we talk?" I opened the door and stepped aside. He came in and sat on the edge of my bed, looking older than I'd ever seen him. His shoulders slumped, his eyes filled with something between shame and gratitude. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he began, clasping his hands together. "I was so focused on being the head of this family that I failed to notice you were carrying the heaviest burden. I'm sorry, my daughter." The words I'd longed to hear for years finally reached me. My throat tightened, and I blinked back tears. "Baba," I whispered, "I didn't do it to make you feel small. I did it because I love this family. But I can't keep giving until there's nothing left of me." He nodded slowly. "I understand. And you're right. It's time we start standing on our own feet again. You've done more than enough." At that moment, the weight I'd been carrying began to ease. Later that night, we gathered in the living room. My mother sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap, her eyes downcast. Tan sat beside me, his presence steady and reassuring. "Temi," my mother began, her voice trembling, "I've been a terrible mother to you. I let my fears and expectations blind me. I thought I was pushing you to be better, but all I did was tear you down." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she finally met my gaze. "You are not a failure. You never were. You are the reason we still have this home. You are my greatest blessing." The room blurred through my tears. I wanted to stay angry, to hold on to my pain, but seeing her so broken, so genuine, melted something inside me. "I forgive you," I said softly, my voice shaking. "But we have to rebuild our relationship. It won't happen overnight." She nodded, sobbing quietly. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window and a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. At breakfast, we sat together like a family again, not perfect, but healing. My father announced that he'd spoken to a friend about restarting his business and was determined to rebuild it from scratch. My mother promised to find ways to help too. For the first time, I didn't feel like the only one fighting for us. As I stepped outside later that day, I paused by the front gate and looked back at the house I had worked so hard to save. It wasn't just bricks and mortar, it was memories, laughter, pain, and love all woven together. I thought about the sacrifices I'd made, the nights I'd cried silently while everyone slept. And I realized something profound: true strength isn't about being celebrated or praised. It's about giving without expecting anything in return, about loving even when it hurts. My mother once called me a failure. Now, she knew the truth. I walked away with my head held high, ready to start a new chapter, not just for me, but for all of us. And this time, I knew they'd see me.